Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan. It is finally getting to be nice, mild weather here in Detroit after wondering if it was ever going to come. So that's something to look forward to as well. And of course, as always, there is a lot to talk about. It's been a pretty momentous week. Joining us to have that conversation are host of Detroit in Black and White, Adolph Mongo. We have president of BME Consulting and former director of the Wayne County Public Services Department, Beverly Watts, attorney Steve Fishman, Detroit Free Press investigative columnist Elrick, and of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. So let the games begin. Now, I know I've provided you with some of the topics that we had to distill for the week, but I'm going to go ahead and call a few audibles if you don't mind. Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, Clarence Thomas. It seems like every day this week there has been a new revelation coming forth regarding possible ethics violations. Now we hear that apparently his main benefactor, billionaire Harlan Crow Jr., with whom he has vacationed all around the world, including such glorious places as Savannah, Georgia, and Indonesia. Apparently, Harlan Crow paid the tuition for Justice Thomas's grandnephew, one of his beneficiaries, someone whom he had legal custody over, so essentially as his son, along with, of course, other revelations regarding lobbyists making sweetheart deals for Thomas's wife, Ginny, among others. What's going on at SCOTUS, and can there be a fix? Allan.
I have something to play, but also, Saeed, I think your earphones may be giving us a little bit of a feedback.
I will switch these off to something else.
All right. Appreciate that. In the meantime, we've got a little video here.
A billionaire named Harlan Crow is flying Clarence Thomas all over the world on unreported trips, like an Instagram model, taking Clarence to the Maldives and the beaches and all. Paid for his mama's house, this billionaire. Paid for Clarence Thomas' mama's house. I gotta give it up to billionaires. Billionaires, boy, y'all are relentless. Y'all always come up with something new to buy. Like, just when you think of everything you could buy on Earth, a billionaire will come up with a new thing. Y'all buy space rockets, you bought Twitter. This man bought a Supreme Court justice. Do you understand how rich you have to be to buy a black one on top of that? There's only 2 in stock. And Harlan Crow owns half the inventory.
True story. All right, Saeed, we're not hearing you now. We don't hear you.
Okay, right. So what
there we
do you
go.
think of Thomas? It's not a good look for SCOTUS. It's not a good look for public confidence in our highest judicial institution.
Fish.
Well, I think we've talked about this before. The Supreme Court is pretty clear. It started back when, well, it may have started a long time ago, but Scalia made it very clear. They believe they're above everybody, and they don't have to disclose anything. The Chief Justice wouldn't even come and testify at Congress because, God forbid, he should have to answer a couple questions about some of the things that the comedian was just talking about. And until there's enough screaming and hollering, I suppose nothing's going to change. You guys see the polling as to what the community thinks, what the public thinks of the Supreme Court, and the numbers have gone so far down. And almost all of it, I mean, a lot of us don't like their decisions, but I think almost all of it is attributable to just exactly what you're hearing about Thomas and this billionaire guy and just the things that they do. They want everybody else to be beholden to the law, and they want everybody else to be ethical, but they don't even feel compelled to explain to any of us why it is that they think this stuff is okay.
Well, so back in the 1960s, yeah, go ahead, ML.
In Michigan, the judicial canons say that anything you do that could make the court look bad are grounds for discipline or removal. So in other words, even the appearance of a conflict of interest can get you in trouble as a judge in Michigan. How is it that Michigan, which has one of the least transparent and least ethical governments in the 50 states has better rules for judges than the best court in the United States.
One other thing, in answer to what ML is talking about, every other federal court, other than the Supreme Court, they have basically the same rules that he's just discussing. I have very good friends who are federal judges. They disqualify themselves constantly. If they own 10 shares of stock and somehow that company has a case in front of that judge recuses himself or herself every time. And so it's not that the entire federal bench doesn't have rules. What we really are seeing is that those 9 people decide that they don't have any rules. And really, it's not necessarily all 9 of them, but they're the only court, the highest court in the land, that doesn't feel compelled to have ethics rules in front of them. So,
I think
his wife is doing what Kwame Kilpatrick daddy used to do. Selling his spot. There's no question that she's getting paid every time anything comes before the court or they need Clarence Thomas. She probably get a kickback. So they need to be investigated. But with the Republicans, they're not going to be able to kick him out off the bench.
I think the Supreme Court, and I'm assuming they don't have this, like every agency, the FBI, ATF, Justice Department, they have an inspector general. There should be an inspector general, a watchdog that watches over the court that people are trying. I mean, it's sort of the foundation of our democracy. It's part of the, one of the branches of government that's so important for democracy, and they're making a mockery of it by letting this go on. And as Adolph says with Ginny Thomas, so many cases that she is dear to her heart and probably dear to Clarence Thomas's heart come before Clarence Thomas. He claims that we don't discuss court, issues and stuff like that, which I think is total bullshit. And besides the fact, it's conflicts of interest aren't just about it's about appearances, and the appearance that you sleep with this woman who has these views and has cases before your court is enough. It doesn't matter whether you discuss or not.
Objection, Allan. Speculation on whether he's sleeping with her.
He shouldn't have ruled in Gore versus Bush. Remember, Ginny Thomas was all part of that. Clarence Thomas should have been recusing himself a long time ago, but he has been there. He didn't talk for 10 years, so now he's doing his thing. He's getting rich. Who else? You got Brett Kavanaugh. You don't know what these justices are taking and doing. This court is a kangaroo court. It's not even a legitimate court.
I just want to say that I think I think with these latest revelations, it just again lets us know where we are in this country. I agree with Steve, especially, I have federal friends that are judges too and recuse themselves on, a lot less. I think that needs to be, and I'm surprised actually, and I'm sure most people are surprised that there's no one like a inspector general or some kind of tool to duly have the oversight over the highest court in the land. That's surprising there. When you look at Clarence Thomas, a person who has self-hate, for not only himself, his race, and everything else, he's easy to pick off, but no one can govern the highest court in the land. That's unimaginable. It's unbelievable to me, actually.
Well, we should also.
I think at minimum, and hopefully this is happening, some organizations like the Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal have dedicated some reporters to looking at the entire court because the government won't. And so somebody has to.
So in fairness, Justice Sonia Sotomayor apparently did not recuse herself from some cases before the court that involved a book publisher with whom she had a few book deals. So just to provide a little bit of balance, that this is not just on one side of the ideological aisle, but you've got issues of disclosure, you've got issues of recusal, and then the pushback from people like Chief Justice John Roberts as well. we can't come and testify before Congress because that's a violation of the separation of powers. So when it comes to issues of inspectors general, is that going to be the flimsy excuse that's also going to be trotted out? Because on the one hand, the SCOTUS was always one to say, well, we police ourselves, we regulate ourselves. That seems to not be working now. So is there a fix to this?
Well,
I think yeah, go ahead, Chief.
The fix is to apply the exact same rules to the Supreme Court that they apply to every other federal judge in the country. I mean, that's not all that complicated. If everybody else has to acknowledge that and it's the appearance of a conflict just as much as a conflict. The appearance of justice is just as important when you're dealing with the public. Because if the public thinks the fix is in, which they have every right to think right now, looking at what they're reading, then I mean, I don't think they need to do anything too tricky. They don't need an inspector general. Just apply the same rules to the Supreme Court that everybody else has to follow. And if they screw up, then you can take them to Congress, and whether they're going to do it or not, that who knows. But you can take them there and try to get them removed. They can do it to a federal district judge. It shouldn't be any different for a Supreme Court justice.
Well, the last time an associate justice of the Supreme Court resigned was Abe Fortas back in the late 60s, and that's for
less. For less.
Oh,
For
much
less.
less.
Yes, a lot less.
For basically
He came
nothing.
off the bench for less. The Supreme Court justices then forced his hand and forced him off the bench. They say he's
Basically
got
for
to
nothing.
pay.
Well, and that's the big problem. Self-policing. I mean, we're talking about Clarence Thomas here, but now there's questions about money that the Chief Justice's wife made. Now there's question about Gorsuch and some deals he's been involved in. You know, this is one of these deals where nobody's going to call anybody out because they know they got something on each other.
Right.
Sort of like the Reservoir Dogs, where everybody's got a gun pointed at each other, and the first guy to pull a trigger ends up killing them all. Now, unfortunately, that's a great movie, but this is reality, and we're going to be stuck with these folks. And one of the things that strikes me about these justices too is one of the sweetest gigs in the world is federal court judge. Good salary, big staff. You never have to quit. So why save for your retirement? Because you're just going to die on the bench. These folks don't need all this money. They make enough money to go on trips. They make enough money to buy the things they want. They make enough money to make sure mama's been taken care of and their grandson is going to school. And I guarantee you that from the minute they put on a robe, they never picked up a check. They never paid for a cab. They were always somebody's plus one for the movies or this or that or the other thing. And if they want to make some money, some legit money on the side, do some speaking gigs, write a book. It's not that hard. You don't have to be on your knees. And it's so heartbreaking because the kind of stuff that used to get you that got people to resign on their own, nobody will run you out now. And there's this new thing on HBO about the Watergate plumbers, and I was reading about it. And every time I think about Watergate, Nixon wouldn't quit now. No way. I mean, so we're worse than Nixon? Game over.
And what's scary is that, to that point is that at the end of the day, we have the highest court in the land making some very fundamental, important decisions that affect all Americans with the serious character flaws that they have. As you just said, guns pointed at each other's head. That's the sadness. That's the bottom line. And that's serious.
Well, speaking of people who are running for worse than Nixon in the pageant and also running for president again, we've got Donald Trump. And Alan, I know you've got some videos that you want to show about number.
Let's see here. I can't remember which one we played already. We played the.
So many scandals. The king of scandals, President Donald Trump. And for just for a moment, can we just all acknowledge, can we just all be honest and just say that the Trump arrest didn't hit like we thought it was going to hit? We're so desensitized to scandals now. That Trump arrest, it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. The Trump arrest was like a pot brownie you ate 4 hours ago. And you're like, do I feel justice? This don't feel like justice. Let me try one of them Georgia arraignment brownies. Maybe that'll hit. Okay, that's got some.
Yeah, we've got one more. We might as well.
In a new interview, former President Trump said that he has been treated worse than every other president before him, including Abraham Lincoln. What are you talking about? Are you mad because you went to the theater and had to watch the whole play? Lincoln not only got murdered, but they also put him on the only money that everybody hates to get.
Yes. So right now we're winding down a case, the civil rape case of E. Carroll in New York. Apparently, the judge in that case has given former President Trump till Sunday 5 p.m. to decide whether or not he's going to come in and testify. Otherwise, we're moving toward closing arguments. Trump is on last record saying, oh, I'm going to go back and confront this woman and all this fakery. And it's going to, of course, cut short my wonderful trip to Scotland and Ireland to see my awesome golf courses. So stay tuned to that. I know, Steve, we've talked about, and I'm not going to you because you're the requisite lawyer here, and you've said that the Georgia case is by far more important. What about this particular case? It's a civil case in New York. Is this going to have damage? Is this going to be another example of the Teflon Donald? Well, how do you see this playing out?
I would say this. I read something this morning about some of the latest evidence in the trial. What they had his deposition. And some of the testimony, I didn't hear the deposition, but reading the articles about it, it was astounding what he admitted to. I mean, the things that he said about women, the things he said about when he made his famous comment in 2016 or 2015. And I have to believe, I mean, there are females on this jury, and it's impossible for me to believe that they're not looking at this guy like, are you fucking kidding me? Because personally, I think if he gets damages, if she gets damages awarded against him, it's the same thing I thought about everything else. That 30% that love him no matter what, you won't change them. But there's a lot of people that are not in that 30%. And I think this case, if she gets damages, which it sounds to me like she will, there's no way, I can tell you this, he's a coward. There's no way he's coming in there and testifying. I'll bet you anything he's not doing that because he's a coward. He's a bully, and bullies, the flip side of it, they're cowards. And he's not going to come in there. And I believe it's going to be another, I don't want to call it a nail in his coffin, since he thinks he was treated worse than Lincoln, who was murdered watching a play. But I think it's going to be something more that's going to make it impossible for him to be, even pretend to be a real candidate in 2024.
Does anyone think that
he's like
these things as an excuse to back out from 2024?
I don't think so.
He's in it for the long run. Even if he has to run third party, Donald Trump would do and say anything to keep being in the spotlight, because he knows once he's out the spotlight, if they get him in Georgia, they get him some other places, that asshole should be in jail. But you know, he's been able to walk away from all this.
I think he's, I mean, I think his ego's too big to drop out. He's a guy who is very willing to burn down the village to save himself. He doesn't care what damage. I mean, we saw that with January 6th. It's like, burn down the village because I did not win. And that's his attitude, and he doesn't care. There's no stopping him. I mean, you know, the question is whether, you know, I mean, whether he'll I mean, I think he'll get convicted on some of these cases. I mean, he should. Question becomes whether he does any prison time or he does home detention or whatever it might be.
He's still going to be running for president, Allan. Regardless of what happens to him, he's going to be running for president, and he's still going to have that 30 to 35%. Who, no matter what, if he says drink some poison, they would drink the poison.
I agree.
No, I have to agree. I think with his ego and in my opinion, you know, combined with a slight, you know, mental illness and how he looks at this whole thing as a show or a game show that he's on, I think he's going to stay in it all the way, even if he has 1%, and then he's still going to declare somebody cheated, that it was not fair. And he's going to declare that because he loves attention, and that's clear, and combined with his ego. So I have no doubt that he's going to stay in this all the way. And if he's not reelected, it's going to be somebody else's fault and somebody cheated. He'll make up the narrative.
He'll take the third party because, like I say, he's willing to burn down the village. If he can't win, nobody wins. And January 6th was like nobody wins when you have a January 6th, and he doesn't care.
So let's go ahead and play this out then. If he's a third party, do you think any of the three candidates could get to 270 on the Electoral College?
Huh.
My money is Mickey Mouse taking out DeSantis. My money is on the mouse. Taking this out, and I do believe that as wacky and the opinion that most have of Trump, from what I'm hearing, folks are more afraid of the Florida governor. So I can't see him, and even I think within their own party, he's kind of radical, and I think his behavior and his stance on issues will only get worse. So I think not him.
Yeah, I think, Saeed, I understand the scenario that you're talking about, where maybe Trump grabs some states and the Republican candidate grabs another one, but I think it's going to be more like he's going to undermine the Republican candidate, and they may not win any of the states if he gets into the race. So
right, okay. So somebody mentioned the C word, meaning coward. Referring to Trump here. News comes that he is declining appearing in any of the primary debates. So here's a sign where it seems as though he himself is perhaps not as courageous to be on the stage with people like prospective candidate Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, and others. Is he signaling something here? At the same time, ML, I know that CNN is giving him some oxygen by having a town hall meeting with him and Caitlin Collins.
Can I say something real quick, Beverly? I think for some reason there's some echoing coming from because I've muted you, and when I mute you, it stops. I don't know if there's something. Do you have a pair of earphones or something, or
no?
You don't?
Nothing.
No, I mean, do you have one that you can put on, or not?
Oh, yeah. I'll go grab a pair.
No, you don't need. I think you're good. Saeed, you're good.
Oh, okay.
I think Beverly is. There's echo coming from your corner. So, okay. All right, go.
Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Saeed. I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no problem at all. So the idea that it seems as though he's unwilling to share a stage in the debates, despite what he claims to be his forte, and then also what might be regarded as some kind of indulgence. I mean, here CNN is looking to have a town hall meeting. So with Caitlin Collins moderating, is this a good idea?
The new Fox network, CNN, they want to step in and become the new Fox, huh? Why are they giving this asshole a forum?
Well, this is one of these classic examples of the media gives somebody all the room they need. Then afterwards, we beat ourselves up and say, oh, we created this. We have to be more responsible. Same thing with polling. Oh, we do all this polling and we actually create front runners. We got to be more responsible with our polling. And then 4 years later, they do the same damn thing again. I mean, I know why they're doing it, because people are going to watch it.
Well, they're clearly...
I wouldn't be surprised they bring Tucker Carlson back. since they, it's all about ratings. Here's a guy that tried to overthrow the government, encouraged an insurrection at the Capitol, and they still giving him a forum. Any other time, he'd have been locked up.
So on the topic of Tucker Carlson, Adolph, the texts keep a-coming. To the point where Fox News has sent a cease and desist letter to Media Matters to say stop disclosing these things. They're proving to be continually embarrassing to us. And the fact that it seems like Fox News has taken quite a hit to its market share and certainly its stock price with Tucker Carlson's departure, equaling almost how much it had to pay Dominion in damages. And of course, there's still the another pending lawsuit out there. This morning, I was reading about an exchange of text between Tucker Carlson and Fox News personality Bret Baier, freaked out about the whole notion of Fox News calling the race for Biden in Arizona back in 2020. Tucker's clearly a liability for Fox News now, but as you said, he might have openings elsewhere. Is there a bottom to this?
I think I think it's just it's good little scandal type stuff. I mean, Tucker Carlson's done; he's cooked. Fox. I mean, nobody's shocked by the conversation, the private conversation, because if you watch Tucker Carlson, he was outrageous on the air. So how could he be not more outrageous, off the air? And so I think at some point, I mean, people are going to get sick of reading about Tucker Carlson. I mean, he's going to be whatever. He's going to reemerge with a podcast or some other more further right, platform or whatever. But I think the emails are like, okay, we get it. The Fox News is not politically correct. Is a nice way of saying it. The nicest way of saying it, I guess. But so here's the question then, Alan. I mean, rumors abound that he might end up at Newsmax or maybe some other outlet. OAN. Can anybody afford him? I mean, here's a guy who now is leaving a post where he was commanding $20 million a year. I can't imagine that some of these other outlets can afford him. So it has to go up. I mean, take a look at Lionel Messi for Paris Saint-Germain, a multi-million dollar contract. Now he's fielding one for $400 million in Saudi Arabia. I don't think he's going to go and play a charity event. Yeah. Yeah, but look, Howard Stern, when Sirius started, Howard Stern, I think, got $30 million, and everyone was like, oh my God, that's totally insane. Well, he helped make that platform what it is today, that it's now a pretty popular platform, and it was worth the money. And so if somebody, a lesser known brand brings him on and gives him, whatever, 20 million or 15 million and says, here, we'll give you a cut of our revenues or whatever. I'm sure there's ways. I'm sure there's a lot of people approaching him, but look, he could just do a podcast and get a lot of money for advertising. He'd skyrocket to one of the top probably 5 podcasts in the country within a very short time.
I think he could go into politics. Listen, I wouldn't put anything past him. He can be the new darling of the right. And you have people out there that was watching him every day, 3 million. Listen, that politically, he has some juice.
Right.
I'm gonna say,
yeah. Hey, Beverly, I'm still getting a little thing, so I'll tell you what. When you want to talk, just raise your hand, and then I'll unmute you. How's that? Okay. So whenever you want to talk,
Speaking of Howard Stern, apparently he's been sitting courtside for the Knicks playoffs games and complaining that black players don't say hi to him, even though he's sitting next to other people like Tracy Morgan and Spike Lee, and people show them love, but apparently no one's showing Howard Stern any love. I don't know if that was anybody's belief, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Yeah, Beverly.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that maybe I didn't read it all or can completely understand, Mr. Stern, but, why is that important? I mean, you're sitting there taking a count of who's saying hello and who's not. I mean, I don't know what's behind that, but I thought that was interesting that you're taking account, of who's speaking and what relevance is that? I'm baffled.
Well, I can tell you this, Beverly, and I'm sure it's no surprise to you. Just because we're talking, all of these people have such humongous egos. I was watching something. I was at my buddy's house, and Stephen A. Smith, also known as a pedestrian, one of the biggest pains in the ass that ever was on television talking, and Jalen Rose was in the same panel. Jalen and I are pretty good friends, so I called Jalen while he was on the TV, and I left him a message on his cell phone saying, I can't believe you're sitting there with that asshole talking about basketball. And when he got done, he sent me a text that just said, that was pretty funny. Obviously, he didn't crap all over him even in his text. But these guys, like Howard Stern, Stephen A., they think that the whole world gives a shit about them. And if some ball players don't say hi, or if a musician doesn't say hi, they're personally offended. It drives them insane. And that's.
But you're talking about other folks who probably definitely, you're talking about an athlete or maybe some musicians that also have an equal, ego. So, you're talking about a pool of egoistic people, and if someone doesn't speak to you,
It's tough to explain to normal people, because normal people,
Right.
That's what happens every day, right? You see
Right.
someone you think they don't talk to you. What are you going to go home and cry all night? Because Jalen Rose didn't say hi. I mean, come on,
Well, what Howard Stern want people to acknowledge him at a basketball game where he can come on his show and say, "Oh, how the black players love me. They just love me so much. I can't even watch the game." He's a real asshole. He gets paid to be an asshole. So listen. So who cares? Just to get some attention. I think that's what it's all about, just to get some attention.
I mean, I can't even dream about having the access to sit courtside. So there's a certain amount of privilege that comes from not sitting in the 200 level or above, which is usually where you'll find me at your average game. So or like I was yesterday with the Lakers and Golden State Warriors, co-pilot on my couch to go ahead and watch that. Well, speaking of Tucker Carlson, of course, his attitudes toward women, his attitudes toward people of color has certainly been well chronicled in his texts and in his emails. The effect that has on the public and normalizing bigotry, of course, is a subject for an awful lot of research and scholarship. But we are having, of course, some issues that are now rearing their ugly head in a more frequent manner. On Woodward Avenue in Royal Oak, of course, at the Woodward Shul, a Jewish center, there was the spraying of a swastika and the word Azov written on there, and I'm not sure if the motivation was the Azov brigade in Ukraine or the fact that Azov is Hebrew for leave or get out. But Randy Lucille Nord of Clinton Township, Macomb County, was arrested for being the alleged perpetrator of that incident. In Minneapolis, 2 mosques were the subject of arson, and Jackie Little was arrested there. Is this now open season on religious minority communities? Alan?
Well, it seems to be that, and I mean the environment has just been like where I hate to blame so much on Trump, and some of my Republican friends will be like, "Oh no, here we go, Trump again." But I think the hatred's been there for forever, but it was suppressed, and now I think it's okay to express. I mean, the fact even on January 6th we saw. These people chanting the N-word. We saw them wearing 6 million wasn't enough, Camp Auschwitz. I think it's just okay now. And I think that hatred is, I mean, look, the woman who was from Macomb County, apparently she had come back 2 years ago. She came back from Serbia. She, 2 weeks after she returned, she was charged with arson involving, I think, the Scientology church out in Farmington or something like that. The Azov, I believe she told the police she was going to go on a hate spree and blame everything on Azov, like that was going to be her cover. Her parents would not let her live at home. She's homeless, essentially. And so, I mean, unfortunately, we're talking about a lot of mental illness that's being, I mean, look, the guy who goes into the church in whatever, South Carolina, I mean, these people are mentally ill. It's not, and so the hatred appeals to them the most. I mean, they feel so disenfranchised, and the idea that they can hate somebody more than themselves. Well,
I disagree. I disagree, Alan. They've been blowing up black churches for 100 years. They've been burning them down. They kill little kids in Birmingham. I can name you about 10 churches. So the hate been there. They go into synagogues. They destroy whatever, is there. Some of them are mentally ill, but not all of them. It has been organized. How do you attack black people or people of another religion? You go after their religion. You go after the churches, synagogues, etc. And they've been doing it, and they're going to continue to do it. Trump didn't start it. Trump just helped fan the flame. When Trump
just poured a little gasoline on the fire.
There's no question that you want to disrespect somebody, go into a mosque and tear it up, or go into a synagogue, or go into a church, kill folks. Not all these folks are mentally ill. They know what they're doing. They're trying to
just self-loathing. A lot of self-loathing. They found somebody to hate more than themselves, I think.
Yeah, this broad is crazy. They need to lock her up, but hey, she was out on bond, huh?
Well, she got. I'm not sure. They posted. They set bond at $75,000. I'm not sure anyone is. We should check on that, but I'm not sure if she's still in the Oakland County or she would be in the Oakland County.
I think she may be out on bond. I think she may have bonded out. But I agree. I just think that, especially in recent years, but I don't want to just constantly blame Trump. And then I hate when people constantly blame the pandemic on everything. It was always there. I think that, suppression, you created, maybe Trump helped create some of the Karens of the world, and mental illness is truly real, and we don't address that. Instead, we try to come out with these initiatives called DEI on one hand, where every corporation and every entity now is hiring that one person to have inclusion and equity. But on the other hand, the country is just raging because that suppression is now open and people are just more bold with it. And so it's always been there. It's getting worse. And mental illness, even when you get down to social media, from TikTok to these games where people are sitting behind their keyboards, they're getting more bold, they're getting more empowered, to screw this. So, this is where we at now. And it's bad that we're going down this path, but I think it's a lot of tools that's enabling taking the blinders off mental illness and really how some people really feel.
Well, you see what happened to the homeless guy on the subway. Well, people watched as he got choked to death. All they did was film it, video it. Nobody did anything to help this guy. That's just choking to death. Unbelievable. This is where we living in.
Steve, notwithstanding the fact that mental illness is a sociological, a psychological, and a medical phenomenon, legally speaking, none of these people seem as though they'd be able to use insanity as a legal defense, though, right?
You're talking about the Marine that choked the guy? He's not.
No. I'm sorry. I know we've got quite a few cases going there. I'm talking about the young woman from Macomb County. I'm talking about some of these people who commit acts of bigotry. It seems as though the McNaughton test for mental incapacity is pretty high, to be sure. But it doesn't seem as though, from a legal standpoint, mental illness really is a defense that's going to be justifying their release or to explain some kind of absolution, is it?
Well, there's two things. The first test is whether the person is competent to stand trial, and that's a certain test. Yeah, they've got to know what their relationship is to the case, blah, blah, blah. Most people are going to be found to be competent. The defense of not guilty by reason of insanity, I've not heard of any of these cases that would seem to me would qualify under that defense. I think what Beverly said, I had my hand up, and she said what I really believe. We can blame Trump. We can blame a lot of individual people. To me, and you guys have heard it 9 million times here, it's the social media that allows this crap, because people can find other people who think like them, and nobody goes in and says, hey, are you nuts? The Jews didn't do such and such. The blacks didn't do such and such. Like we're all saying, anybody that's a member of a minority, it doesn't matter what minority, but particularly, at least in my lifetime, blacks and Jews, we all know we're a minority. We all know there's a lot of people that hate us, either because of the color of our skin or the fact that we go to shul on Saturday rather than church on Sunday. We already know that. But the ability for these people to get together and to be able to communicate, you were sitting in their basement in their drawers, communicating with each other, that's, I think, what the biggest difference is now. Trump, obviously, because he was coarse and his people are coarse, it made it more, in a sense, acceptable. But I think it's the social media that does it. I really believe that.
Right. You don't have to go to you don't have to go out in a field with 100 people to burn a cross. You can sit in your house right on your computer, and you can get as many 1,000 people, 10,000 people.
Right.
Yeah.
Sandy, one other thing too. The one other thing about that, and we've talked about this before on this show. When we were younger, certainly when Adolph and I were younger, if somebody had something to say to you, they kind of had to come up to you and say it. And then different things can happen. You want to box, you want to wrestle, you want to argue about it or whatever. But the consequences never were going to be all that great. Maybe a black eye, you hurt your back, or you didn't go get a beer or something like that. But now the consequences, as we all see, because they don't have to be confronted by anybody face to face. They can sit there in their basement in their drawers and communicate with all these people. And then, as Adolph says, now you got 1,000 people that want to show up at Mumford High School or whatever because they don't like blacks and Jews. Then it's a little different situation than when we grew up.
Yeah.
By the way, Fish, I am in my basement, but I'm wearing my Adidas track pants for anybody that cares. Yes.
There's nothing wrong with wearing your drawers. You just usually should have pants over them when you're going to be going. Yeah. That's all. Okay.
All right, man. I knew I forgot something. No. Okay. TMI. All right. This next story really disturbed me for some reason. Apparently, the Hamburglar is alive and well in Louisville, Kentucky. 10-year-old kids apparently were working the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. shift for no pay. Wow.
I've got a little video on that.
Cannot make this stuff up. Check out this headline right here. U.S. investigation uncovers 2 10-year-olds working at Kentucky McDonald's. Investigation also found 3 franchises in 4 states, employed a total of 305 children working more than legally permitted hours. I mean, this really is a damn shame. Thank you, Michael from The Guardian again. Toddlers know the golden arches, but you ain't supposed to put them to work like that, McDonald's. Shame on you.
So a U.S. investigation sounds like the same agency that was hunting bin Laden. I mean, what does that even mean, U.S. investigation on this?
That's the Labor Department or?
So you have states like Iowa where the legislature is looking to curb back on child labor laws. And here you see in the case of Kentucky where 10-year-olds are working, coming from a state with a long tradition and history of labor unions and passing regulations which have benefited workers. What's happening to America?
I don't know if there's a desperation for, some of those service jobs, we saw during the pandemic. I see right here near where I live on Woodward near the Boulevard, White Castle very early on in the pandemic was offering $15 an hour. I think there's certainly a desperation there, and there's a lot of kids who are like, hey, if I was 13, yeah, shit, I'll take that job. I wouldn't take it for free, but although I'm sure you find some kids who say, yeah, hey, free Big Macs and fries for you, just come on.
It was the night manager's kids. The night manager needed help, so got the kids to work. But it is unbelievable. Well, you know what? Kentucky, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul. Why are we surprised? Why are we surprised? We still haven't heard from Mitch McConnell and Senator Paul on the shooting in Louisville. They have been silent. Why are we surprised that Kentucky and Iowa, you probably go to Mississippi, Alabama, and you find all this? No.
Right. So when I was researching the story, and maybe this also is an illustration of where we are as a country. This story, when I put in Kentucky, came in second by a country mile to the story of how 4 horses have apparently died in the run-up to the Kentucky Derby. That seems to be where everybody's attention and anxiety is, other than a 10-year-old utilizing and working a deep fryer at a McDonald's, and people not seeming to have too much.
I did in junior high. My father had a bar. I would go every Sunday and probably put in about 4 hours of work there, and I only got paid with breakfast and lunch, and I was thrilled with that. So,
were you working the bar? Were you working?
I wasn't working the bar. I was. You know what? I stacked beer bottles. And when the janitor didn't show up, I mopped and waxed and did all that stuff. So.
Were those merged into one meal, Allan, or did you actually get 2 distinct meals?
I got 2. I made sure I got 2.
Okay, so this story actually is for you, Beverly, because I know we were talking about this before. Apparently, a lot of retail is abandoning San Francisco downtown. Now comes word that Nordstrom, certainly a mainstay of anyone who's gone down to Union Square and the main retail mecca that is downtown San Francisco, shuttering 2 stores there. Target is closing, as well as a Whole Foods market in what is supposed to be one of the most beautiful cities in the world, a major tourist destination, and certainly a very expensive city. If San Francisco is going through these issues, how does that make you feel, Beverly? And what does it say about retail broadly across the United States?
Well, it makes me sad, as I was stating earlier. But if I'm in their shoes and I'm in the CEO, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. However, I am one of those folks who's not really a fan of online shopping. I'm old school like that. So I love to walk into a brick and mortar. I love to window shop. I love that whole experience. At the same time, recently, since 2019, visiting San Francisco, I could feel, that there was a difference there. I didn't know exactly, how things are being ran there, or with the homeless rate, definitely with the laws there, misdemeanors, allowing some of the retailers there feeling as if they're helpless when it comes to protecting their goods and providing the services that everyone expects. And no one supporting them. So when you combine that, to me, with online shopping, really have a significant gain. You look at Bed Bath & Beyond, one of my other favorite retailer stores that I like to go into that, is closing, bankruptcy. And then you topple that with the problems that they're having, the competition with now in a city like, San Francisco, where you can have the laws there that's really not protecting their goods. Now I have to spend more of my revenue, when it's down anyway, on security. And insecurity. So, it's sad to me. It's totally sad to me, especially a big giant like Nordstrom's and other stores to follow. I think these cities, and especially when they depend on it for jobs and their local economic growth, they're going to have to start looking at all of this and see what that really, really means. And because, they're not going to make all their money in their economy in their local cities just off of Amazon. So I think that they need to be looking at that and really having those, trying to see these tools that they can help these big giants and these retailers to stay with brick and mortars. But it's sad to me.
Well, anytime at San Francisco, I'm priced out the middle class, a rent for a 500 square foot studio apartment is $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Listen, I'm not surprised. You go to Phoenix, and right down the street from the state capitol is a homeless community, 3,000 strong. Go to Denver, right down the street from the state capitol, there's a homeless community. Hey, listen, it's not just San Francisco, LA, Phoenix, all these places.
No, but
these folks doesn't care, and the homeless keep growing. So I'm not surprised at all the problems that they have.
I'd say, look, the homeless thing is insane that it's not being addressed in some way, and I agree. I mean, we should not have people living out on the streets in tents where we have it in every LA, San Francisco, Portland. But what we're seeing in San Francisco is the laws are so lax that they're not arresting shoplifters. So why would you? I mean, I'm not going to open a store just to be, a good guy. People are losing money. They're tired of it. There's a certain level for a retailer. There's a certain level of lawlessness. It's like, why should we bother? And
you're gonna lock them all up. You're gonna lock them
up.
Well,
you got to do something. You got
Alcatraz out there, so you can put them all on the island again. That's what you want. San Francisco brought that on themselves. They got some problems. And the problems are, they done priced everybody out. Nordstrom's ain't making no money anyway in those places. But no, you can't stand around and have them just come in and just take everything. It has to be a balance. But don't blame it all on the homeless.
But
don't blame but
that's it's complicated. But as a store person, you can look at all the economic issues there. But in the end, why am I going to open a store where people can walk in and just take what they want and not pay for it? It's like, I'm just not going to operate a store like that. There has to be some balance.
You need something.
Yeah.
No, Adolph, I totally agree. But I'm thinking when you're talking about the homelessness, that goes into the same topic to me as going back to mental illness, because everyone that's out there that's homeless is not due to because I just can't find a job. But if I'm a retailer, whether I'm Nordstrom's or anyone, and then you have lax laws, I'm looking for the leaders of that community. I'm looking for other business. We're going to come together and you're going to help me. Because at the same time, if I'm trying to help your economy, jobs, and I'm trying to sell something, I can't take on all these other issues too that you're having that's affecting my business to help grow homelessness, and then your laws on misdemeanors. You're putting too much on my plate. Look, I'm a retailer. I'm trying to have business for myself and for your community.
Somebody up for 10 years for stealing some toothpaste or some shit. That's something that these stores gonna have to deal with. You can close them all down. Close them all down. Who you hurting?
But at the same time, I agree with what you're saying, because we have a lot of people still incarcerated, and that's another whole topic. Hopefully one day we'll get to. However, I can't be in the business just having a free market, a total free market. When I'm going to have a brick and mortar shop, I'm going to have goods and services in there and trying to at least have revenue. But people can come in and I have no recourse, and they can just come in, walk in, stop. I can't say anything, take my merchandise. What do I do?
So the reason that Detroit is a food desert is because we got too many thieves walking in, lax laws, etc. I can make that argument where we don't have a Nordstrom's or a Target or any. Why? Because people are still people gonna shoplift.
So one of the things
I still go back to, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, we make money, but they make sure we go across 8 Mile Road or someplace else to spend it.
So Beverly, you said that you like the brick and mortar experience.
Yes.
The other day I was looking at Warby Parker because I thought I needed new glasses, and I actually went to the website and it allowed me to put on glasses to see how I looked. Before going in. You've got now these meta goggles and virtual reality things. If you like to browse, you're going to have that opportunity with retail, allowing you to sit there and go through the feeling of that without necessarily having to just click around on a keyboard. I think we're at that inflection point where stores like Nordstrom and all now are going to have to decide, do you invest or reinvest in physical retail space, or are people going to move? And by the way, you and I and everybody here on the show are of a particular generation where we still are touchy-feely that way. You talk to people who are under 21 and they are fine with the Amazon truck pulling in. They're fine with clicking to find things. If it doesn't fit, we'll send it back and get another one, or however it is. So we're kind of changing culturally, aren't we?
So they're also, some of them are fine with no social skills. When I say my experience of going into a store, normally, it's going to give me time also to spend time with a dear friend or a relative that, we all working, we don't have time to do. So we're there together and we're going to have lunch and we're going to look at everything. I'm going to get opinions. Yeah, I'm going to put on my glasses. I can do that with my keyboard, but there's nothing like saying, hey, how do I look? I don't want to just sit there and talk to myself, at a keyboard and have these different glasses on without having that experience of interaction and social skills. So to me, it goes into a whole narrative for me when I go into a brick and mortar and getting folk experiences. I don't want to just have to sit there and buy everything mainly from a keyboard and talking to myself and not even going out helping my economy with other things like restaurants, museums, and zoos and anything like that. So that's what I'm talking about. And if that's where we're going, that is sad, because those same people behind that keyboard is some of the same ones who feel empowered and suppression is off, to generate, our culture, this racism and all of that. So yeah, it's scary. Social media and this keyboard is an enemy to me.
Basement in their drawers, as Fishman would say.
Yes.
Wait, if you're looking for a recommendation on socializing, axe throwing. It's a whole lot of fun. Anyway, okay, Fish is back. Excellent. Just in time for that segment of the show, Alan.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Yes, we are looking at Schmuck of the Week. Just by the way, one more corollary. All these people in California and all the issues that they're having, they could certainly move to Michigan, except here's the problem. U.S. News and World Report, and maybe this is somebody's schmuck, said that Michigan ranks 41 out of 50 states, even lower than Ohio. And I just don't understand that. But anyways, that's my vent.
Wait, ranked based on what? I saw that number too, but what ranked based on what? Did our ball clubs stink? Or I mean, what does it matter?
That would be way too obvious. So they're saying 8 categories, including healthcare, education, the environment, infrastructure, opportunity, fiscal stability, crime and corrections. And yeah, that's it. So I mean, it seems rather bleak. All right, Fish, who's your schmuck of the week?
My schmuck of the week was easy for me. Governor Greg Abbott qualified the moment he started commenting on the murder of those people and didn't mention them as human beings at all. They were illegal immigrants and they were killed by an illegal immigrant, blah, 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 blah. The guy never ceases to amaze me because I think he's been schmuck of the week on this show 20 times from different participants in the show, and he never stops surprising me. That one there, I have to admit, was not something I ever thought I'd hear from the mouth of a governor of any state, even that crazy woman up in, where's it, Idaho or whatever. So he won easy. My decision was made immediately as soon as I read that. Greg Abbott, you're it.
Yeah, I mean, one of them was an 8-year-old boy.
8 years old. They now find out he was 9. So,
okay. Yeah. 5 people killed because they told their neighbor, hey, would you mind not shooting off that AR-15 in Cleveland, Texas, just north of Houston. And Francisco Oropesa goes ahead and kills 5 people to only be further dehumanized by Governor Greg Abbott. Excellent one. Beverly, your schmuck of the week.
Wow, I really have 2, but the first one, of course, is Randy for me, the young lady who was arrested in Oakland County. Totally a schmuck, of the week, when you're talking about the graffiti, what you're doing. I love the new commercial that is out. I love the blue square. I think that if you really have a difference, I love that commercial when the dad tell his son, get out of the car. You go and talk to them. But I think for me, she's totally a schmuck of the week. The other one real quick is someone that I really do like a lot. But this week, he's a schmuck to me, and that's Harry with his dad's coronation. We all have family issues, but, you're going to go over there and you're going to borrow Oprah's plane and you're going to stay merely, 2 hours and you're going to hop back on the plane. I think he missed a great opportunity to really be a role model for his son. Not only would I have went and stayed the entire day, I think he should have took his only son, Archie, over there, let them see exactly who he is, but then also forgiveness. This is your family, dude, and this is your dad. It's a very important day. It's not an average picnic. So I think he missed the boat on that, on going there, staying all day and taking his only son with him to be with his family. That's it.
Well, in fairness, Beverly, I mean, first of all, Archie's staying back because it's his 4th birthday. That's why Megan.
What a wonderful birthday present. That's a great gift. Take his kid over there to meet his family and show up in his authentic self. And you know, sometimes kids, you'll never be. Archie probably is going to be, and probably could be, the catalyst to bridge that family together. Not the firm and everything else that goes along with it, but the family. Archie could be that point. What a great birthday gift that would have been for his son, and a great role model for Harry to teach his son.
You need to be a PR for that idiot King Charles. Yeah.
From what I understand, Beverly, Harry was only invited to the coronation, not any of the other festivities. I mean, he was actually pretty much blanked out of them. So there's that backstory to it, that they wouldn't let him play in any of Charles's reindeer games. So that's
would have taken my son. You know, you make the moment exactly what you want it to be. You know, don't let them dictate everything. I would have took my son on the birthday, my son over there, let them see him, see his cousins, and I would have showed up. Even if they only let me come right to the church and kick me out, I would have been there and made it with my son on his birthday.
Maybe Archie can get some time off from the McDonald's.
Okay, Emma, who's your schmuck of the week?
Well, I got two. Sheree Canada and Debbie Stabenow. Here we got so many problems here in Michigan. We can look in Sheree's backyard, Highland Park, water issue, and they fighting over what to name the federal building. Who gives a fuck about whether it's John Conyers or Rosa Parks? We got real issues here in Michigan. And I know why Sheree is doing it. Yeah, it's a pretty political move. Name the building after John Conyers. He's embracing them. But we got Highland Park got a water problem, bankruptcy looming large. Look at Ben, all these places, and all they doing is, well, I'm gonna name it after Rosa Parks. Oh, I'm gonna name it after John Conyers. Well, hopefully somebody come in and say, let's name it after John Dingle. Who knows? But they are the two schmucks of the week.
Why can't they just name the building after the MC5? I don't know. That's just my vote for that one. Why not? Okay, ML, who's your schmuck of the week?
So I'm reaching across the ocean, and I'm naming Jonathan M. the schmuck of the week. This is a sperm donor who fathered 550 people.
Wow.
And he's somewhere around Holland. We don't know exactly how far he went, but he seems like he's on a one-man crusade to turn the Netherlands into Kentucky. And he has been admonished because it turns out there is a law. You can only father 25 people from 12 mothers, which would make him a very high draft pick in most of our professional sports leagues. But I don't know whether he did this for the money or for the ego. But when you have a small country and 550 you are related, and people tend to like folks who look like themselves, and they see somebody who says, that's a real good looking young woman or a young man, I think that's my future. Jonathan M., you're my schmuck of the week and for generations.
But there was a follow-up story to that, ML. Apparently, Nick Cannon contacted him and said, "Can I be your caddy?" I don't know how true that is, but yeah. All right, Allan.
My schmuck, I got a couple. One is Clarence Thomas. I think if he had any decency, he would just step down from the court, but his wife would not allow it because there would be a Democratic appointment there. She'd go crazy on him. I just think he's such a disgrace. I think he's been a disgrace to that court for a long time, but even now with all these revelations, even more so. And the other schmucks on the court who are involved in a lot of conflicts here. The other one is and I like her, but Dianne Feinstein. She needs to step down. She's holding up appointments, federal court appointments. She's been on the bench in the Senate for 30 years. She's 89 years old. You could take a little bit of an early retirement. there. It's ridiculous. You know, and it's funny. Roy Wood during the correspondence dinner. It's funny. I never wanted to go to the correspondence dinner when I was in D.C. just because I thought it was a little bit appalling that reporters would take their sources as guests. So, like, someone from the Wall Street Journal might bring, the CEO from General Electric or something. And I thought, but I love watching it. And Roy Woods was talking about in France how they're rioting over 2 years retirement going up from 62 to 64. And he says, and here it is, we've got this guy 80 years old begging for 4 more years of employment, referring to Joe Biden. So anyways.
Okay. So Steve, well done on Greg Abbott. That was actually my my schmuck of the week as well. But as of course, I always like to have backup. So I've got a couple. First of all, Antoinette Myers. She was on Wheel of Fortune this week and had amassed $13,600 and a trip to Hawaii. The puzzle had already posted 2 tickets to blank blank R blank blank ISE. You don't have to be an Eddie Money fan to know where this one was going. But apparently Antoinette Myers needed to buy a vowel and she picked a U. Sorry, Antoinette, but there is no you in 2 tickets to paradise, and you don't get to go to Hawaii. So that was the first epic fail. The other one is Chloe Elizabeth Stein, 23 years old, from Jeanette, Pennsylvania, who faked her own abduction just to then have an excuse to not show up at her graduation ceremony at Penn State Greater Allegheny. The reason being, she'd already dropped out of Penn State Greater Allegheny a year and a half ago. So at 10:35 p.m. on Monday, she was reported missing from Sonic, where she worked, and was gone for a sum total of 20 hours. I've heard of many reasons of not showing up to one's college commencement, probably a lot of it including intoxication. But faking the abduction for the embarrassment of having to finally admit that all that tuition money that mom and pop might have been spending for a year and a half went to someplace other than Penn State Greater Allegheny, not to mention the taxation on the law enforcement agencies and people worrying about it, including, I imagine, Sonic Restaurant. Chloe Stein, you're my schmuck of the week.
Now, I understand she's running for Congress from Long Island, so there is a happy ending to the story and has a very good chance of winning.
But
I think she could actually also MLB George Santos's beard. So who knows where the strange world of culture and news takes us. Well, anyway, thank you all for being on another show of the week that was. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Adolph Mongo. Thank you, Beverly Watts. Thank you, Emma Elrick. Thank you, as always, Allan Lengel with the last word.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.